Welcome to the Silverpine Chronicles, where cozy mysteries and mountain tales mingle like the scents of pine needles and freshly brewed coffee. My name is Tom Wild, and I'll be your guide to this little corner of the world that time almost forgot. If you drive west long enough, past where the highways narrow and the billboards thin out, you'll find yourself following a river that winds through foothills like a silver ribbon. And if you know where to look, if you don't mind a little mud on your wheels and taking the road less traveled, you might just stumble upon Silverpine. From a distance, it appears like a painting someone might have dreamed. A cluster of stone buildings and Victorian homes nestled in a valley, surrounded by towering pines that stand like ancient sentinels. The mountains rise behind them, jagged and proud, their peaks still capped with winter's last snow, while spring has already embraced the valley below. As you approach, crossing the old covered bridge that spans Silverpine Creek, swollen now with snow melt from the high country, you'll notice how the morning light catches on the weathered copper dome of the town hall. Local legend says the green patina matches the exact shade of the surrounding forest when viewed from Lookout Point at sunset. Some call it coincidence. Those who've lived here longer call it the mountains having their say. The cobblestone streets of Main Street welcome you with their uneven charm, not made for speed, but for strolling, for noticing details, for pausing in your journey to appreciate the way spring unfolds differently here than in other places you may have been. Silverpine in spring is a symphony of sounds. The rush of the creek through town, the chorus of returning birds staking their claims in newly budding branches, wind chimes stirring on front porches, and beneath it all the steady percussion of hammers and saws as the town emerges from winter's quiet to repair what the frost and snow might have damaged. And if it's warmth you seek after your travels, you'll find no better place than the Copper Cup Café. It sits on the corner of Main and Pine, in what was once the administrative office of the Silver Queen mine. The mining company's ledgers have long been replaced by jars of locally made preserves and hand-labeled coffee beans, but the building's history lives in its bones, in the exposed beams overhead, and the original safe that now houses the town's most coveted pastry recipes. Through windows flung open to catch the spring breeze, you can hear the gentle hum of conversation from within. Behind the counter, you'll likely find Maggie Bellweather, arranging fresh wildflowers in small mason jars on each table, her movements precise as those she once used when adjusting camera lenses in war zones and distant lands. Her silver-streaked dark hair is often pulled back in a loose knot, and her eyes carry the quiet watchfulness of someone who has seen more of the world than most. Silverpine wasn't always her home, but if you ask her now, she'll tell you it's where she was always heading, even when she didn't know it. "First time in town?" she might ask, sliding a mug of something that smells like comfort across the counter to you. The locals say Maggie has a gift for knowing exactly what drink a person needs, sometimes before they do. The corner table by the eastern window is nearly always occupied by Cal Boone, a fourth-generation Silverpine resident whose hands bear the calluses of a lifetime working with metal and stone. The retired miner now runs the old blacksmith forge as a living history exhibit, though those in the know bring him items that need fixing when more modern solutions have failed. His laugh fills the room like smoke from a good fire, warm and spreading. Today he's explaining to a group of regulars how the annual thaw always reveals something the winter kept hidden, sometimes just a lost garden tool, but occasionally something worth remembering. If you're fortunate, you might catch a glimpse of Elowen Hart slipping in through the side door, her wild dark hair adorned with what might be early spring blossoms or new leaves, her movements as fluid as the river itself. She rarely stays long in town, preferring the company of the high forest trails and hidden valleys. But when she does appear, conversations quiet momentarily as patrons wonder what stories she'll bring down from the ridges. The old trail above Widow's Peak is clear now, she might mention to Beck Reyes, the former high-altitude climber who leans against the far wall, nursing a black coffee. Found something interesting carved into a pine up there. Beck's eyebrow will raise just slightly, his version of open curiosity, before he responds with something like, "Natural or—" The measured tone of his voice reveals nothing of the expeditions he once led up the world's most treacherous peaks. And that's how it often begins in Silverpine. A casual observation, a question, a possibility. Sometimes these moments lead nowhere special, just the gentle rhythm of everyday life in a small mountain town. Other times, they're the first notes of a melody that carries through the valley for weeks to come. Mysteries in Silverpine rarely announce themselves with grand entrances. They prefer to arrive like the morning mist, gradually, quietly, until suddenly you find yourself surrounded. At the center of town stands the Silverpine Chronicle office, where Franklin Mills, editor, publisher, and sometimes the entire reporting staff, keeps the weekly newspaper running with equal parts dedication and coffee. His silver-rimmed glasses often slip down his nose as he hunches over submissions from townsfolk or his own careful documentation of town events. Today, the front page features guidelines for the upcoming spring thaw parade, alongside a gentle reminder about keeping drainage ditches clear as the mountain snows continue melting. In Silverpine, we verify before we amplify, he often reminds his occasional intern, Sasha Quinn, the young artist who came for a weekend painting retreat 3 years ago and somehow never left. Her studio above the Mountain Mercantile now showcases canvases that capture the ever-changing light on the surrounding peaks. Speaking of the Mountain Mercantile, you might notice its doors propped open today, allowing the scent of newly arrived seed packets and garden tools to mingle with the earthier smells of spring itself. Inside, Emmy and Ollie Graves, the elderly twins who have run the store for 5 decades, are transitioning the inventory from winter necessities to spring possibilities. Emmy's voice carries as she directs her brother on the proper arrangement of seed displays. "The wildflowers go near the window, Ollie. People want to see the colors in the light." As evening approaches, you might find yourself drawn to the warm glow of the Owl's Nest Tavern, where local musicians gather on Thursdays for impromptu sessions that blend folk traditions with original compositions. The tavern keeper, Eleanor Wright, claims the building stands on the exact spot where the town's founders first stopped to rest. Some places, she'll tell you if you ask about the tavern's history, just know they're meant to be where people gather. And that's Silverpine for you, a place that knows what it's meant to be, a haven, a community, a setting for stories both ordinary and extraordinary. Most who visit don't plan on staying long, but the mountains have their own way of inviting you to linger. And before you know it, you might just find yourself becoming part of the story. The evening light has begun to soften now, painting the western faces of the buildings in tones of honey and amber. Down at the creek's edge, children release tiny handmade boats of bark and leaves into the current, an old Silverpine tradition that welcomes spring by sending winter's remnants downstream. Each small vessel carries a wish or a worry, depending on what its maker needs to release. On the bridge, Mayor Jed Dawes watches the ceremony with hands clasped behind his back, nodding approval at this continuity of tradition. Tomorrow will bring the familiar challenges of managing a town poised between seasons, ensuring culverts remain clear, organizing volunteer crews to check the hiking trails, preparing for the influx of visitors that warmer weather always brings. But that's for another day. Until next time, remember that in Silverpine, the mountains keep watch and the stories run deep. This has been the Silverpine Chronicles.